When people think of Anna Wintour, they usually picture the sharp bob, the big sunglasses, and that icy stare that can freeze a room. But there's a reason she's lasted for decades at the top of one of the toughest industries in the world. It's not just about style. It's about strategy. And not the kind that gets printed on the pages of Vogue. The kind that works behind the scenes, quiet, careful, and powerful enough to control how people see her and how they see themselves. Anna Wintour didn't just build a brand. She built a persona. And every move she makes is part of that image. From her perfectly controlled expressions to the way she enters a room, it's all designed to do one thing: take control without saying a word. That's what makes her so fascinating. She doesn't need to shout. She doesn't need to beg for attention. She makes you come to her. And this is where the mind games begin. One of her strongest tactics is emotional distance. If you've ever watched a room react when Anna Wintour walks in, it's like someone just turned the volume down. People get quieter. They watch her every move. That's not by accident. She creates tension on purpose, because tension gives her power. When people feel off balance, they try harder. They chase approval. And that makes them easier to influence. It's something called social mirroring. We all do it. We take cues from people we think are higher status. If someone important stays cold and quiet, we start to second-guess ourselves. Did I say too much? Am I dressed right? Do they like me? And in fashion, where image is everything, that kind of pressure hits even harder. Anna Wintour mastered that environment by controlling not just her own image, but the emotions of the people around her. She rarely gives direct feedback. Instead, she gives just enough. A nod. A silence. A simple, "That's all." And the people around her scramble to read between the lines. Was that approval? Was that disapproval? The uncertainty is what keeps them on edge. And when you're on edge, you work harder. You stay later. You start shaping your work to fit what you think she wants, even if she never said a word. That's the brilliance. She doesn't force you to change. She makes you want to. That's manipulation at its highest level. Not with force, but with presence. And it creates this world where people compete for her attention, her approval, her smile, even when they don't really know what she's thinking. Which is exactly how she keeps control. And it's not just inside Vogue. Anna Wintour is known for picking winners in fashion. If she backs a designer, they blow up. If she turns away, they disappear. That level of influence turns her into something more than an editor. She becomes a gatekeeper. And with that power comes something else: fear. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind. The kind that makes people shape their whole careers around staying in her good graces. So the question is, how does someone hold that kind of power for so long, in a world that's always changing? That's what we'll dig into next. What keeps her grip so strong isn't just fear. It's something deeper: perception. Anna Wintour has spent years crafting how people see her, but even more cleverly, how they see themselves when they're around her. If she gives you attention, you feel chosen, important. See? And if she doesn't, you start questioning your place. Not because she said anything, but because she didn't have to. This kind of power works like a mirror. People project their hopes, their fears, even their self-worth onto her. And she reflects back just enough to keep them chasing. That's not just a personality trait. That's Machiavellian. It's the art of using influence without revealing your true intentions. And Anna Wintour uses it the way some people use a signature perfume. Always present, impossible to miss, but never too obvious. A designer once said being ignored by her was more painful than being told no. That's how strong the silence is. When someone builds a reputation like hers, silence becomes its own kind of weapon. And when everyone wants your attention, saying nothing speaks louder than anything else. You don't have to tear someone down. You just have to not lift them up. And that gets people to do wild things. Change their entire vision. Rework collections. fire team members. All just to win back a nod from someone who never asked them to change in the first place. It's not that she's giving commands, she doesn't have to. The system she created does the work for her. People start to act the way they think she wants, which gives her even more control without her lifting a finger. But let's be honest, this strategy isn't just cold. It's effective. Fashion isn't a soft industry. It's brutal, competitive, always moving. And in that kind of world, having a little fear wrapped in elegance can keep chaos in check. Anna Wintour doesn't just survive in that world. She defines it. And that's why people tolerate the pressure, the coldness, even the manipulation. Because deep down, they believe being in her orbit will lead them somewhere important. There's another piece to this though, timing. She doesn't flood the spotlight. She chooses her moments. An appearance here, a few words there, never too much, because the less access people have, the more they want it. That's scarcity. And it works just as well with attention as it does with luxury goods. She is the product, and the less she gives, the more valuable she becomes. This is where it all ties together. Emotional distance, uncertainty, scarcity, carefully controlled praise. It creates a loop. One that keeps people striving, guessing, adapting. Not because she forces them to, but because they believe success depends on it. And once that belief sets in, the system runs itself. That's not just leadership. That's psychological design. And it leads to a simple but unsettling truth. The people who seem the calmest in the room are often the ones pulling the most strings. Not with loud orders, but with subtle cues that make everyone else move around them. Anna Wintour has spent a lifetime mastering that. And the deeper you look, the more you realize, this wasn't about being liked. It was about being needed. But what does that do to the people around her, and to her too? That's where the cost of these tactics really starts to show. The truth is, Anna Wintour's success comes with a price, not just for the people around her, but for her too. The fear she creates, the distance she maintains, it all works to build her empire, but it also isolates her. People may want to be in her inner circle, but the question is, what does it really mean to be in that circle? You're constantly striving, guessing, questioning if you're doing enough. And when that's the environment, you never really get a chance to relax, to just be. For those who work with her, it's a constant balancing act. On one hand, you're being pushed to do your best, to meet expectations that feel impossible. But on the other, it's never really about just doing the job well. It's about how much you're willing to give up to prove your worth. Time, energy, even your own sense of self. And when you're constantly chasing approval from someone who holds the power to either praise or ignore you, it takes a toll. You don't just lose sleep, you lose sight of what truly matters. For Anna herself, this kind of power can be a double-edged sword. Yes, she controls an empire, but at what cost? The very tactics that give her influence, emotional distance, scarcity, manipulation through silence, also build walls around her. People around her are scared to disappoint her. They're driven by the need to get her approval, but they're also afraid of her judgment. That fear creates distance. It's a powerful tool, but it can also leave you standing alone at the top, unsure of who actually supports you, and who just wants to stay in your good graces. In a way, Anna Wintour has created a perfect system. One where success feels like it's within reach, but only if you play by her rules. And that's what makes her so dangerous. Not because she's actively trying to hurt anyone, but because she's set up a world where everyone has to bend to her perception of success. And once that happens, it becomes harder and harder to see yourself as anything other than someone who is constantly chasing. But here's the thing, there's a way to use power without leaving people behind. True leadership doesn't demand that you strip away someone's sense of self to make them follow you. True leadership builds people up, challenges them to be their best, and doesn't make them feel like they're only valuable when they're competing for your approval. Anna Wintour's story shows us how easy it is to get caught up in the need to control perception, to make others chase your approval, your nod, your attention. But in the end, is it worth it? Because while she's built an empire, the cost is clear. Success may come from manipulation, but it's the kind of success that's always at risk of falling apart. People can only stay on edge for so long before they crack. And when they do, it's not just them who pays the price, it's the empire itself. So, as you step into your own leadership roles, ask yourself, are you leading with intention, or are you just shaping people's perceptions of you? Are you inspiring them, or are you manipulating them? Because true influence comes from connection, not control. And when you make people feel like they matter, not just when they're meeting your standards but for who they are, you'll build something that lasts. Something that doesn't rely on fear or silence to survive. Something that thrives on trust and respect. That's the kind of power that lasts. And it's the kind of power that ultimately is worth having.